Bonjour et bienvenue. Welcome everyone. I am Sebastien Gauthier from Montreal, Canada. I hope you are doing all very good today. I certainly do. I'm very happy to be back in the IPS community. Just before we start, let me say hello to my friends and colleagues from Edmonton and from Alberta. We can only dream to what it would have been to have an IPS meeting in Edmonton, but I hope that we will have the chance to visit your wonderful place sooner than later. So, salut, my friends. You may know me as I used to work at the Rio Tinto Alcan Planetarium here in Montreal, where I've been the director or cinematographer for many full dome projects. But for a little bit more than a year now, I'm back to my roots, I would say, as an independent worker and filmmaker. And my goal is now to produce my own feature film and also to help others with their own project as a director, a DOP, a technology specialist, or anywhere I can help in a planetarium project. About my talk, I was supposed to feature the live action filming from many full dome directors. But now that it is online and way shorter, I decided to concentrate my examples on my own work. So the talk should be called My Personal Evolution to Live Action Filming. When you are using computer-generated or live-action images into a film, you are talking to your audience. In a way, you are speaking with images using some sort of visual language. And this language can be as powerful as the spoken language. But there is more to the visual than simply what you are filming. There is more than your subject. The way you handle the camera is very important. Its location in space, its trajectory, your choice of lenses and field of view, everything will contribute to your visual storytelling. And one of the things I really like about my job is to explore the possibilities of this visual language and even possibly add new vocabulary to the language. And in my approach, I strongly believe that a visual language for the planetarium should be as immersive as possible. If you're making a film for a concentric theater, it goes without saying that your visuals should be distributed all around the dome because you never know where your audience will be seated in the theater, so never know where they will look at the dome. I think this should be exactly the same for oriented theaters. Very often we see very good oriented full dome films that when you watch them for a couple of minutes, you realize that they are not very different compared to giant screen films or IMAX films. You have something projected on the sides and in the back, but this something is not really contributed to the story, visually contributing to the story. You can even crop some of them in the south direction and you will end up with the exact same film visually wise. So in a way, they are not truly immersive. So I invite you to keep this in mind for the following of my presentation, this idea of an immersive visual language. And also I invite you to pay attention to all my attempts to constantly tell the story in a 360 manner. So I will show you 4 different clips from my previous work. I will start with very simple sequences where I will demonstrate, let's say, words of my visual vocabulary, and then I will transition to more complex sequences where I will demonstrate some sort of visual sentences, if you will. Here's the opening scene of Aurōrae in 2014. I really like that sequence because here for the first time we were able to film live action in real time in 4K using a cinema red camera with a fisheye lens. Prior to that, I was limited to, let's say, 1 frame per second using time lapse. And with this fisheye lens here on the camera, the field of view is slightly lower than 180 degrees. It's probably 177 or so, but it's enough to see buildings all around the Dome Master that suggest a urban location. And if you're from Montreal, you can recognize the Olympic Stadium tower. So the camera is not moving here, it's static, but as you can see, the scene is very, very dynamic, and it gave a very strong opening to the film, and the audience really enjoyed that sequence. The film is about Northern Lights, and according to an old legend, Northern Lights are a manifestation of our ancestors playing ball in the sky. So this is exactly what we see here, and by using young and modern football player like this, we were able to engage the audience into the story. So it's not mythological stories that belongs to someone else anymore. It's something contemporary, it's something urban, and something you can identify yourself to. We have now the Place d'Armes scene from the film Tempo, a film about time in the solar system and in the universe. The scene opens with a 3D sequence from a LiDAR scan obtained in downtown Montreal, so some sort of elaborate live action filming, if you will. So this sequence is very complex. It starts at sunrise, it stops at after sunset, and the camera was there for the whole day. There was a lot of people downtown Montreal around the camera, so we had a big crew. But what I want to show you here is the field of view of the sequence. After making some tests in the dome, we realized that in order to tell the story, to see the passage of time downtown Montreal, to see people doing their business in the Place d'Armes, we needed to see below the horizon. And we discovered that the perfect field of view for that kind of shot was 207 degrees. And this is a very important finding, because after that, the 207 degrees became my standard shot. So it's very rare now that I will film at 180 degrees. I prefer to see slightly below the horizon to give some context to the film. So you see now that the city will, the light pollution in the city will disappear, and we see the stars of our ancestors and so on. My next example is from a film about Pluto, directed by Maxime Pivin-Lapointe at the Montreal's Planetarium. And for this one, I was the director of photography, and I wanted to play more with this idea of changing the field of view of my immersive camera. And I was inspired by the traditional cinema shot scale, where by changing the field of view of the lens, you completely change the way you tell your visual story. So I started to elaborate what I call a spherical shot scale, where I have different field of view from quite narrow to very, very wide. So I won't go to much details, but as you can see, you have 235 degree shot, 213. My shot from Place d'Armes at 207 is very important at that shot scale. So I won't go into much detail, but I'll show you an example from the movie. In this next sequence, you will see the context in which Clyde Tombaugh discovered Pluto in 1930. And it's a series of establishing shots that are using the spherical shot scale. So the sequence starts in the desert of Arizona. And to be sure that the audience understand that we are in the desert, in somehow a harsh environment, I decided to film it at 213 degrees. So this way, the rocks, the cactus, the plants are using a lot of space in the dome. So you clearly feel that you are in the desert. On the contrary, for this shot, the lower part of the location is not relevant to the story. So you don't need to see the floor to understand that you are in an observatory and that you are looking at the telescope that was used by Tombaugh to discover Pluto. Now we're back outside of the observatory, and in this scene, the terrain is playing a part of the story. So I shot it at the infamous 207 degrees, the same field of view that we use at Place d'Armes. Back inside the observatory, this is 170 degrees again. I discovered that when I film inside a small building like this one, 170 degrees is often the best field of view. We're back in the desert. Here we want to establish the arriving of the night sky. To be sure that we know that we are in the desert, again, I choose 213 degrees. But now I've included a silhouette of a cactus in the shot. And that silhouette will help me to do the transition to this 180 degree shot where the desert is now is not very prominent in the shot. But because I still have a silhouette, I know that first, I'm still at the same place, I'm still in the desert, and now because I'm at 180 degrees, I can show constellations and stars, and everything will look traditional in the dome. The last example in this series is from the film EXO, a film about the search for life in the universe. When we wrote this film, Loïc Quesnel and I, we really wanted to make a feel-good movie. We wanted to celebrate life on Earth. And as the director and cinematographer, or DOP, I tried to put everything I knew in terms of immersive visual language and also to innovate in the storyboarding process to make sure to have the most dynamic film as possible, visually speaking. So I'll show you some example of this. This is the opening scene of EXO, and I wanted to, right from the beginning, show the whole theater of the film, the whole background of the story. So here we see the ocean, or the sea, and in French, the sea is la mer, which is the same word as the mother. So the sea is the mother of life. So this is very important in the story, this idea of the origin of life. You see also the sky and the sun, which represent the stars and the heavens, which is the expectation of finding life and maybe not being alone in the universe. I also wanted to show the land where us, Homo sapiens, where we live. And it was very important for me to visually see the waves coming on the shore. And because of this, I needed to have a wider field of view. So 207 degrees was not enough. So we went for 213 degrees to see the waves. And this field of view became the reference field of view through the whole film of EXO. And as a DOP and editor and director, it's good to have reference framing and reference cut in your editing and reference camera speed and things like that, because when you have a reference, you can bring your audience to the same page at some point and surprise them by switching from this reference to something else. Now we have a classical shot. Here it's visually more quiet because there is a lot happening in the text, but we see action all around. So we have this kid here with his bike, and on the other direction we see a dog, which is always paying off. And the goal of these shots in this sequence is to establish the idea that maybe life is very abundant in the universe, or maybe because it's very complex, it's very rare. And in this shot here, it represents this delicate equilibrium of life. Here we have the action happening in a specific direction on the dome. So in omnidirectional theaters, that was a problem. But by using tricks in the sound design track, we were able to make sure that all the audience were looking at the girl walking on the slack line. Here we have a quick transition, a visual transition with the bikes crossing the dome, somehow threatening the equilibrium of life and of the girl. Again, the field of view here is to 13 degrees. Another transition here with the bike, and here comes the complexity of life. So we see a very dynamic and immersive sequence. And this was very paying off in the dome, and you see people looking all around following the frisbee. So this is a good example of a very simple but truly immersive full dome shot. And now the sequence is about to explode and become very, very dynamic. And in the story, we are exploring the idea that if life exists, it might be elsewhere. It might be very, very diverse. So you will see that the pace of the film will increase. At editing, I wanted EXO to have an average shot length as short as 25 seconds. And at the end, it turns out to be an average of 21 seconds, which is very short for a full dome film. And in this sequence, you will see some shot at 8 seconds. So it's very, very dynamic. And you will see also that the camera is always moving. So I will run you the sequence and I will describe it later. So pay attention to the movement of camera, to the editing tricks, and again, this idea that I always tell the story in a 360 manner.
In any event, if the diversity of life on Earth also occurs on a cosmic scale, we can hope to make some fascinating discoveries.
Just quickly want to show you some details of what you just saw. So here, as I said, the camera is always in movement. So in the drummer shot, you have a traveling, the same for the dancers. Then you have a vertical traveling in the jungle. Here for the dendrobats, these frogs. Here you will see some very interesting editing transition that we made with the help of Marlène Poulain, our editor. Like a match cut here between the beluga kissing the fox like this, or the fox quickly running away while the caribou or the reindeer are coming in. Here there is another match cut between the movement of the bird's wings that is matching the movement of the butterfly wings, or the pulse of the jellyfish into darkness that launches the audience into space with this overview effect of planet Earth. just before I leave you guys, I just want to say a few words about my current and future projects. I'm currently the director of photography for a National Film Board of Canada production called Worlds of Ice, directed by Philippe Bylock and produced by René Chénier. And we have started the filming for this production, and it will be very, very beautiful. There's filming on location. It's full of visual tricks and 360 visual effects. We've installed a studio inside the giant freezer, and it will be full of beautiful surprises. I'm also working on my own full dome film about solar eclipses. So I already started that production as well, and I'm currently looking for partners for this project. So feel free to contact me if you are interested. For the end, I wanted to talk about my latest addition to my immersive visual language. The dome is a perfect medium to show things that are surrounding us, like mountains in the distance, or of course, stars and constellations. But it's not easy in a dome to show things that are close and in front of us. Of course, you can take a fisheye lens and just orient the lens toward that object, but this is no different than what they do in traditional cinema. It's not really immersive. So I'll show you a new technique that addresses this. We know that one of the way to film in 360 is to use a rig of multiple cameras. And we know also that one of the issue of such a system is the fact that all the cameras are seeing the scene from a different perspective. So when you take each and every images of the rig and you stitch them together, you have some parallax issues. Sometimes you have hard time to stitch the image together. And the farther away the lenses are from each other, the worse is your parallax issue. If you want to know more about parallax and in a more detailed manner, I invite you to visit my website, and I have a video about this. So if we bring all the camera closer together in a rig, we will reduce the parallax issue. But now imagine that we continue to move in the cameras and we go beyond the center of the rig. So we go to a negative distance by inverting the rig like so. By doing that, of course, we are not fixing the issue of parallax. On the contrary, it will be worse. But now there is something very interesting. All the cameras are facing inward, and this while retaining all the 360 properties of the rig. So it's still possible to stitch all those images together and obtain a full dome image. So of course you will see the camera in your field of view, so you will need to fix some of the details. But if you manage to do this, this gives you a lot of creative possibilities, especially if you increase the distance inside your inverted rig to include, let's say, live subjects. This is my backyard in Southwest Montreal, filmed during the lockdown a few months ago. And so this has been taken by 3 cameras separated by many meters away. So they are slightly from different point of view, but because there is a lot of details in the scene, it's almost impossible to detect that this is from a different point of view. Now, if I include a subject, myself, you see it's very interesting. These are not 3 different takes. These are the same take taken from 3 different points of view. This, for me, is a truly inward immersive scene. So dependently on where you're looking in the dome, you see a different point of view of the action in an immersive context. And if a subject is back to you, you just change to the next subject and you'll be maybe in the front of the subject or from the side. And I would like to use this technique in my next film about solar eclipses for interviews and to give explanation to the audience. So that's it for me, everybody. I wish you all the best. Take care, stay safe. I hope you will continue to be amazed by the beauty of nature. And I wish you a wonderful IPS meeting. Au revoir.